Today, I want to talk with you about what to do when someone is belittling you or your work, which is very interesting. Not just one person sent me a message saying, hey, this happened, can you give me some feedback? But you can also talk about it in the group if you'd like for a Tuesday session or for a Tuesday live. But it has also come up in a whole lot of different conversations today and yesterday and the day before. So apparently the universe is trying to tell me something. Continue talking about the topic. So what to do when someone is belittling you? It's really interesting, and I think it kind of ties into how I have been experiencing life lately a little bit. I am going to be honest. I think I'm in a big shift right now with my business and with myself and how I want my business to be represented in the world and how I want to represent myself, because it almost feels like something or someone took the veil off of me, and suddenly I see things where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to come across like this. I don't want to have my business this way, because if we're real honest, there is a lot of dishonesty out there when it comes to business, just to get ahead and to make the money that we want, right? So for me, integrity is a big issue. And so I have to look at myself where why is it bothering me so much? Where do I have to look at myself? And I know one of my coaches, she always says, like, your integrity might actually sometimes get in the way of, doing the things that you want to do. I might be right. So there's some work for me to do, and it's also kind of affecting the group if you have realized that I haven't posted as much, because I'm trying to figure out where I really want to go in what I want you to understand about life, and just really recognizing where we're all at on our journey. So that's actually is really great conversation, therefore, because yesterday I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine. She also asked for my help, and she's going through a lot of things, and she has gone through a lot of trauma in her life as well. And there's one guy, he is a big preacher in the Christian world, a very young guy, well, very young, he's my age, so he's a young guy. He's a young guy. He's actually here from Indiana. His parents just live up the road, but he is pretty well known nationally. He has a huge audience when he does come to churches. And a couple years ago, I went to one of his events because everyone was raving about him and how he really touches people's hearts and minds and changes people's lives. So I was like, I need to check him out. It might be really interesting. And I was in the state back then where I felt like I'm nobody, I have nothing to say, but I have this dream. Maybe he can help me to get to the level where he is at. So I went to this event and I listened to him, and a couple of things happened. It was a free event. He asked for donations at the end because he doesn't charge for his events, blah, blah, blah. But when I went home, I, for some reason, started crying in the car. I was sobbing. I got to the point where I almost had to pull over because I couldn't see, and I didn't know why. Why was I crying after such a great event where there were so many people going up front, giving their life over to Jesus? Why was I crying? Because obviously it should have been something really, something to celebrate. I thought about it for a long time, and yesterday it was confirmed, because this person has understood how to emotionally and spiritually manipulate people into whatever he's believing, making it, I don't know if it's intentionally that he did that or not, but turning it into a power struggle, a power authority game. I have power over you with what I say. I know how to manipulate you to believe what I say, no matter how much shit he is talking. Sorry, my words, you don't hear me cuss very often, but sometimes you do. And so yesterday he went on a live. I'm not going to say the name because, like I said, I don't want to do this. It's just not cool. But anyways, he went on a Facebook Live ranting and exposing other pastors who had relationships with younger girls, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know the whole story because I didn't watch it. We were just talking about it yesterday. And suddenly he flipped people off and called out 3 girls that he had sex with last year, who all 3 claimed, independent from each other, that he manipulated them emotionally into having sex with him, which often is being demonstrated when someone experiences themselves in a position of power. Happens very easily. So he misused his influence in degrading and diminishing other people because subconsciously he knew exactly what he was doing isn't in alignment with what he's here for, and it's not in alignment with a divine soul at all. So of course he totally responds in alignment with his guilt and his shame that he's carried around and has been triggered many, many times. Well, apparently they took this live down because it got really, really ugly, because he showed pictures of the girls that showed the worst of them, blaming them for where it went. And I just thought, and you are a leader to young people and youth. This is disgusting. So this was probably the reason why I sobbed in the car after the event, because something inside of me knew what he was doing, but he also was an important person and I was nobody. So I couldn't allow myself to actually say it out loud, because that would have meant I judge him, like I can't do this. I mean, he is this really, there must be something wrong about me to believe that about him, because there's so many people that follow him and that admire him and all this really great stuff about him, and I can learn from him, you know? So I didn't say anything, I just stuck with him. But yesterday totally confirmed my breakdown from a couple years ago after the event. I never went to any events again. I don't want to have anything to do with him, even if he's from here. Don't care. But he needs some help himself, and that's hopefully something he recognizes eventually. But what happens, especially people who are more sensitive, we sometimes feel the spear. It's like people who are rather insecure but want to appear as strong and that amazing warrior that they are in changing people's lives, but they actually know that without manipulating, they probably wouldn't have that effect. They belittle other people so that they continue to grab onto their power, making sure that everyone knows that they are either older, wiser, have more influence, more followers, so that you know exactly where your position is in this world. And because often more sensitive people are more likely to be the target of such outpouring of non-love, because we see it, but if we feel it, but if we don't know what we are experiencing, we are reacting to it, and therefore we confirmed to them subconsciously why they did it in the first place. Does that make sense? Like we validated their belief system in the way they have talked to us in that moment. Like the way people talk to us always demonstrate a level of how they perceive their position in comparison to you. And if someone appears rather emotional, we have created a society where we use that against them. That is considered as weak. So if you're weak, I have power over you, of course. So I say things to justify what I actually feel about myself. And I use people that I perceive as weaker, so it's actually easy for me and I don't get any opposition from it. And people yearn for, like, especially in the bigger space, when you see leaders, and I think that's why I don't really care if someone is a celebrity or not. I talk to them as a human being, as everyone else. It has happened before. Sometimes I didn't even know who I was talking to, and people like, do you know who you're talking to? I'm like, no, I don't care. They were just nice. We had this great conversation. I don't care about anyone's followers or how much money they have. If they're shitty as people, none of his other stuff matters. That just means that they're really good at convincing people of their outside mask. That's what happens. And sometimes they trick, like they just mention little things that convince people, my God, he's right. I'm actually nothing. Nah, I have to look up to them. Like, I have to look up to them because look at where their success is, how successful they are, and how much money that we can't question that. It's not right because they must be doing something right if they are so successful, right? No, we just have learned to be easily manipulated. And so, especially when we find ourselves in an unexpected situation where someone suddenly comes and condensates us, is that the word? Condensates us? It usually has more to do with us where they're exactly hitting that insecurity spot within us. And I have those days too. Sometimes someone says something where I'm like, shoot, they just got me. Like, I totally reacted to it instead of just letting it go. Like, it really just got me. But instead of starting to turn it around and blaming them, I started to really take a look at, okay, so this just happened. What is my lesson from this? Where am I not taking myself seriously enough? Where am I not believing myself? Where can I not forgive myself? What are things that I cannot forgive myself for so that I can let it go? I have learned, especially over the last year in particular, that forgiveness is the big word. And we're not talking about forgiveness. You're being forgiven. You haven't done anything wrong. No. That's not what it is. It's not justifying someone's behavior. It is about, I recognize that it is about you, not about me, unless there is something for you to apologize. Maybe you did something or said something that wasn't great, that where you responded from your survival mechanism, from your survival instinct, and making yourself feel better about yourself. But it takes a lot of awareness just to say, you know what? I just came from this place and I apologize. I'm sorry. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And to be honest, sometimes I don't have this courage. I just run away. Yeah, I just leave it. I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to ignore the whole situation. But sometimes it haunts me and then it comes back and then it goes back to where either sometimes there's situations where I just really have to let it go and say, I forgive you and I'm moving on because you came from your own insecurities, your own stories, your own belief system. It doesn't have actually anything to do with me. Or I might have to go back and say, I'm sorry, because I was the one this time who was trying to demonstrate my power through the knowledge, or I was trying to push something onto you to make myself feel better about myself. Right? It takes a lot of strength, and to be honest, I'd rather run than go back to the person and say, I'm sorry. But the great thing is you can start practicing that with your immediate friends and family. So if someone really comes talking down on you, belittling you, it is on you to just really see the situation. Like, okay, did they just come from their own insecurities and something in the way they treat me just sometimes okay, so sometimes it actually is also great because it also gives us a bit of a message. Like, if we know it is actually about them, when they come back and especially when they're older siblings or parents, like people who think they are actually ahead of us in life anyways because of their experience, when they do come and condensate and belittle us, it most likely is a trigger around like, how can you actually pass me? You cannot pass me on this journey. You can't be more successful than I am. So I make sure that you are not passing me because you're my younger sibling. You're my kid. You are my employee. I'll make sure that you're not passing me. So it just kind of reflects back that you might actually really doing the work and they're watching probably closer than what you think they are. and they're trying to stay in control of the situation for themselves. So there are a couple different scenarios, and I think sometimes it's just important to take a look back, and take a step back, and take a deep breath, especially, and say, what just happened? Did I just get triggered? Did they really say what I heard? Was it about them? Did I actually say something? And what can I learn from this? So in most cases, it is the situation where we can learn from it. Okay, I choose to not take it personally. I acknowledge the growth that I have gone through, and it's painful, and it's hurting me because I really count on those people, because sometimes it is people that are important in our lives. And it's important for us to acknowledge that, why it hurts us. And then say, okay, I am not attached to them. I am not actually them. They're on their journey and something triggered them. I will continue to be on mine. I forgive them. You can even imagine them in front of you. Don't even do it to them, to say, I forgive you. I forgive myself for what it triggered inside myself. And I acknowledge the lesson that I can learn from this. It takes practice, because, oh gosh, emotions are tricky sometimes, and they can take over. I'm like, why? But let me tell you, the reason why I get quite some pushback from people about my work and the way I teach it is because suddenly the perceived emotionally weak people become very strong people. And we can't have that, because it would actually disrupt the whole authority dynamic. Can't have that, right? Because emotionally aware people are very strong and mature people, because we don't take things seriously. We are not easily manipulated. We are not easily to just follow whatever you say. We ask questions. That's why in school, children who ask a lot of questions are not actually welcome. Just do what I tell you to. That way we're making sure you know who is in charge. Right? So just becoming aware of that will really help to see the strength in this experience and the lesson, than dwelling in the pain and getting sucked into it and getting lost in it. I think sometimes we get lost in it. And like I said, I have to take responsibility myself. Sometimes I say things in a way that might leave out some aspects that I didn't even think of. And sometimes I say things because I was in my head and responding from a place of authority. How dare you question me? I have done this and this and this, right? But it's not always the way to do it either. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people, because sensitive people are perceived as weak because we can't control our emotions, right? It's actually not the truth. Sensitive people just don't know how to question the system. Because in their head, in their heart, they do question the system, right? Where they ask questions. They want to know why. It doesn't feel right. Why? And then they respond to it emotionally because they don't know logically what's going on and why they feel the way they do. Just something to think about, especially with very emotional children. Allow them to ask questions. Why do you feel the way right now? What triggered it? Like, what happened? What happened that you feel the way? Did someone say something? Did you feel something that felt weird? And so we can empower them to see the perceived social weakness as strength, because the more emotionally aware human beings we have on this earth, the faster the whole authority and hierarchy system is crumbling. And you will feel and see a lot of opposition to that, because people who don't want to work with themselves or want to work on their own journey and on their own healing process, they want to make sure that everything is in place, because if everything falls out of place, they have no choice to actually, they have no choice but to do the work, because they still want to fit in. Isn't that weird how our brain thinks and how we have created social systems to fit in and to be part of it and to it's kind of the maze in our head that keeps us busy all day. But I hope this gives you some clarity, and maybe you go through your life like, oh, this is how I felt the way I did. Okay, now I can actually step away from it and take a different look, or I don't have to take it personally. I can actually forgive them and move on. Just the thought of forgiveness sends out that energy towards them, and you don't know what that could potentially shift within them. So the more emotionally aware you are, the more powerful you are. That's why I have created the course. That's why I talk about it. That's why I have been doing this and this, like working with the people and doing this group. For those who don't know, actually, I'm not just talking about it because I went through it, but my background is actually sociology, psychology, and ontological. I went through ontological coaching training, which is this. I don't know how you would translate ontological. I don't know. Spiritually based training, but that's the place from where I'm speaking and where I'm constantly learning about the way we have created systems that need to be broken down for us to really experience true freedom. And that usually needs to happen in our mind first, to break down those system-based belief structures. We can only do it if we understand the system. So, anyways, there's always still that really cool course about emotional awareness, developing emotional awareness at theempoweredwarrior.com, theempoweredwarrior.com. You can check it out right there. All right. Have a great day. Thank you. I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to point anything out, but thank you for the topic inspiration. That was actually quite helpful because it gave me something to think about too and what had happened. Just understand that we're all on our own journey, and some are a little rougher with themselves, and then they have to project it on everyone else because it might overwhelm them if they actually have to focus on themselves and have to admit that to themselves. So just acknowledge your journey. Set very clear boundaries. Be aware of your boundaries. Communicate that. And then focus on forgiving them and understanding what your lesson is from this. With that, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your week and keep learning, I guess. Made to rise. You're made to rise. Anyways, have a great day. Bye.